Choice, your creative superpower. We have the power to manifest as we dedicate attention to our thoughts, but often miss opportunity to achieve the greatest good. Your superpower is waiting to be unleashed to unlock a fuller, more rewarding world for all. Join us every Thursday at noon Mountain Time for Choice, your creative superpower with Zoe Muro. And now, here's Zoe.
Hi, folks. Welcome to the New Thought Media Network. My name is Zoe Muro, and I'm honored to be your host for Choice, Your Creative Superpower. We're here each Thursday at 11 a.m. Pacific Time, 12 noon Mountain Time, to consider how you can use your superpower to co-create your life experience for the greatest good. If you're coming back, it's so good to spend this time with you again. And if this is your first time, well, welcome. I'm a religious science practitioner at the Oakland Center for Spiritual Living in Northern California. I'm also a transformational coach. I work with people who are looking to live their lives to the fullest. In today's episode 21, we're going to be continuing our exploration of choice and wellness. Now, if you didn't have a chance to listen to last week's show, please do so when you can, because it sets the tone for this discussion. And there's a lot going on in this discussion. Briefly, let me just remind you of the focus for the topic, which is the model developed by Dr. Bill Hetler, the co-founder of the National Wellness Institute. Okay, it's called the 6 dimensions of wellness. And these dimensions are occupational, physical, social, intellectual, spiritual, and emotional wellness. Now, I'm taking these not in that same sequence, but so far we have touched upon the physical, social, and occupational dimensions. Today, I want to start with the intellectual. Excuse me. The intellectual dimension. This is a truly awesome aspect of wellness that is actually very often overlooked. I'm not saying that people necessarily overlook learning or educational opportunities, although that certainly can happen. But what I'm actually referring to here is that it is not that uncommon for people to miss the connection between their intellect and their wellness. I want to open this up a bit more, though, because I'm not simply talking about your ability to reason or comprehend. I'm also talking about creativity, discernment, the ability to address the abstract. All of these affect our choices and our ability to live life well. Perhaps not surprisingly, this dimension ties into the other dimensions to inform, to shape, to guide, or to obstruct, to diffuse, or to limit us. Actually, it's not just this one dimension that ties into the others. It's each of the dimensions that is tied to each of the others. That's what makes this approach to wellness so powerful. Understanding that wellness and wholeness go hand in hand. Now, for those of you who have not been around the philosophy of New Thought, excuse me. Sorry. For those of you who have been around the philosophy of New Thought, you know that we often speak of how our spiritual truth is that we are, each and every one of us, whole, perfect, and complete. And yet, we become ill, our throats become dry, we become frustrated, blocked, we feel disconnected. How can we possibly think that we are indeed whole. How could we? Well, why do we not think of ourselves as whole? Could it be because we have a preconceived notion of what wholeness is and we don't measure up to that standard? Is it in comparing our body, our job, our situation, our life to someone else's and feeling less than? Here's the thing. If we take the one aspect of our humanity that absolutely has a shelf life, so to speak, our physical body, we know there are limits to what the body can do to grow, to sustain. Ultimately, it will get used up. Eventually, it will cease to function. There's no denying that. But think about it. That's what it was actually designed to do. It's organic. Like every part of nature, it follows a cycle of birth and death. Let's be real here. Even a machine eventually wears down and ceases to function. My point being, there's nothing wrong. There's nothing imperfect about that cycle. Is it wrong that an egg becomes a larva, or a larva becomes a pupa? Or is that pronounced pupa? Maybe it's pupa. Or that a pupa becomes a butterfly? Was the egg not perfect, whole, and complete? You see, we put our own judgments on aspects of life, and at times we miss the totality. We are creations of the one loving Spirit. And as such, at our core, we are eternal. The body which houses our being in this plane was a temporary vessel. It's perfect for this plane, but it's unnecessary as we transition to whatever comes next. Part of wellness is understanding that. It's understanding nature. That's capital N nature, as well as the qualities of life that affect us each day and we respond to. The more we choose to hold on to and refuse to let go, or if we refuse to explore a situation, a feeling, an idea, well, the greater the likelihood that our obstinance turns to suffering. I did a session a while back about pain and suffering. If you get a chance, go back and take a look at that one. You'll get a better sense of what I'm talking about when I talk about suffering and how we can actually significantly increase our suffering by what we hold on to. Now, on the other hand, we're talking about wellness here. So allowing ourselves to change, allowing ourselves to grow, to break down and to rebuild, to see that impermanence is the way of nature, well, the easier the path of wellness becomes. Our intellect not only solves problems, but it creates, it imagines, it dreams, if we allow it to do so. Now, we're talking about wellness. So for us to have wellness, we want our experience to be as full as possible. Okay? So the idea of imagination, of dreaming, of creation, that's huge. The word intellect comes from the Latin word for understanding, which is not simply being aware of something, but it's actually having a deeper experience of it. Your wellness is not necessarily enhanced because you know things, but rather because you understand them And that understanding becomes a tool with which you can expand your experience of life and bring a greater richness and fullness to your life. So that's the thinking side, if you will. So I want to transition from the concept of thinking excuse me, to the concept of feeling and look at another dimension of wellness, the emotions. Okay. No matter how much attention we might pay to our physical wellness, it can be completely and totally undone by ignoring emotional wellness. Emotional wellness actually starts with awareness. I briefly considered saying that it starts with having emotions. But the reality of it is, we all have emotions. The most fundamental emotions, the so-called basic emotions, are anger, disgust, fear, happiness, sadness, and surprise. Considering that these basic emotions are determined primarily in the oldest part of our brain, what's called the limbic system, it would be pretty difficult to argue that anyone does not experience them at some point in some way, shape, or form. Now, does that mean that everyone experiences them in the same way? Oh, no. Not by a long shot. Whether we're talking about what triggers any of the emotions, or how they're experienced, or acknowledged, or responded to, or expressed, all of these can vary widely and wildly from person to person. Do we get to choose which emotions we experience? Probably not. Do we get to choose which we'll acknowledge or recognize? Oh, yeah. Do we always recognize which emotions are in effect? No, not always. Matter of fact, it's not at all uncommon for us to confuse anger and sadness. Or if not to confuse them, then to feel more comfortable with one or the other and to substitute it. Does our ability to acknowledge or recognize emotion affect the choices that we make in life? Oh, absolutely. No question at all. You know, in American culture, and admittedly in some other countries as well, but I know the American culture the best. The stereotypical stoic male who seemingly never experiences emotion, well, that's often regarded as being solid and strong, while a man who expresses emotions freely is seen as, well, at the very least, as less so. Well, guess what? That stoic guy, yeah, he's still experiencing emotions, but keeping them locked away. So the question for you to consider is just what relationship do you want to have with your emotions? It's your choice. If you believe that an unreadable persona works for you, great. As long as you're processing those emotions within and you don't have a need to truly represent yourself to anyone else, just saying, do you really, truly need to be unreadable? Do you really, truly need to hide aspects of who you are? For the purpose of this conversation, I believe that your wellness is most definitely calling for you to work with your emotions, They're part of who you are. Have you ever been surprised by an emotion that seems to have just kind of like snuck up on you? I don't mean happiness that, an unexpected visitor or gift might evoke. I'm thinking of sadness or anger in this instance, especially if it felt that the depth of the emotion was more than you would have expected. There's a good indication that the emotion you're feeling is tied to something within you that may very well need to be explored. It might even need to be excavated and explored. Excuse me, if it's something that you've hidden away, whether consciously or subconsciously. So you get to choose. You throw more dirt on it or drag it out into the light and see what there is to see. I believe that real bravery lies not in an impenetrable facade, but in a willingness to be vulnerable. Oh, hey. Hi, Fiona. Good to see you. Okay, let me see. Where was I? So our relationship to our emotions can indeed have a profound effect on our choices. If you're uneasy expressing sadness, you might very well be unlikely to choose to seek comfort in confiding with others. If you're uneasy expressing love, you may very well be limiting your ability to connect on an integral level with another. Now, as always, I have to put in my disclaimer. We're all different in many ways, and your experiences may very well be different as well. So, same. Speaking of different experiences, oh, that feels so much more comfortable. Wrong glasses. How we choose to address our emotions can bring us tremendous opportunities for connection, for growth, for happiness, even physical health. This is wild. Consider this. Let's say you're profoundly sad, but you clamp down on those tears and stuff that emotion deep inside. Do you know that your body's sympathetic nervous system, in response to your emotion, is to signal a release of stress hormones, adrenaline and cortisol? You have to remember, your body sees stress of any kind as danger, fight or flight. So these hormones get released, and then there's a physical response in the body. You can feel your chest tighten. You can feel your breathing become heavier. If holding it all in is your typical response, you are continually stressing your body to the extent that you could develop issues with sleep, with your blood pressure. You could even be making your body more susceptible to illness, because the fight or flight suppresses the immune system as well. Right? Your body says, all right, we're in real trouble here. So we're shutting everything down except what we absolutely have to have. That's it. Now, it hardly seems worth it, does it? What's the advantage? If you're listening to this, you're interested in your wellness. So, to examine, approach your emotions as well. How do your emotions affect your choices? Well, when anger is at the forefront, we tend to be a lot less analytical and a lot more prone to acting without consideration of consequences. Remember that email that you sent? It's like, oh yeah, and this is terrible, and this is awful. Ah, oops. Remember those words that flew out of your mouth right before your brain said, "Oh no, no, don't say that." Yeah. When fear is dominant, we tend to be far more reserved in our choices. We become unwilling to take a chance. In fact, looking at these different aspects of it, consider this: what we look from can be far more expansive or limiting than what we look for. What I mean by that is, here's a couple of examples. When we're sad, it's not uncommon for us to see more reasons for sadness. And when we're happy, it's not uncommon for us to see more happiness. Perfect example. You've probably seen this in many different movies. Couples get together, all right, during one part of the movie, and they look around and they see all these other happy couples. And then another part of the movie, they break up. And what do they see? They either see all these other happy couples that they aren't, or they see all these other people that are breaking up and feeling miserable. So we have a tendency to choose a perspective and then make everything fit that perspective. I want to push a little bit further into emotions and wellness because I want you to consider this. An optimistic outlook on life can actually lead to not only a more fulfilling life, but literally a longer one as well. There have been a number of studies that have followed people for years. I mean, we're talking decades. And they concluded that an optimistic view of life, now, a realistic optimistic view, just to be clear, right? We're not talking some Pollyanna ignoring reality kind of deal. No, this is the real deal here. Okay. But an optimistic view of life can truly increase longevity by notable percentages. Excuse me, it can even help extend our chances of living life beyond 85 years of age by more than 50%. That's absolutely remarkable to me, considering that the average lifespan, well, in the United States, certainly, the average lifespan is currently around 76 for men and 81 for women. And I got to tell you, I'm 72 years old. If a positive, optimistic outlook on life is going to help me by more than 50% in a goal to get beyond 85 years of age, I'm all for it. Our emotions can lead us to make choices that bring greater satisfaction to our own life, as well as to the lives of others. For example, the ability to feel compassion for others can lead us to care and support for them. Being grateful tends to open up our purse strings as well as our heartstrings. Even fear, when tempered with logic, can bring us to make choices that are more realistic and appropriate. I remember when we got our first puppy, Buster. I was watching him go through all sorts of wild gyrations and carrying on like a loon. And now, mind you, this is my first dog, my very first puppy. So before I rushed them to the vet, I decided I better call my sister. And I told her what I was seeing. I said, what should I do? Should I take him to the vet? Did he eat something bad? Was he having a stroke? What's going on? He's like going crazy. And she laughed and she said, he's being a puppy. And the zoomies and the strange sounds, well, they're all part of his playtime. That's all it was. And don't even get me started on the concerns that you can have as a parent. I mean, you look at that precious tiny being there, and it's almost impossible to imagine ever letting them out of your sight, let alone seeing them go to school or play with their friends or go away to college. The point is that wellness is a balancing act. It's balancing many different aspects of one's personality, one's beliefs, one's value, one's life. So much. So we use our emotions. We use our intellect. We use all of these different aspects of who we are. And when we use them well, when we use them in concert with one another, when we use them in such a way that we are actually utilizing the strengths of each of these, we have a greater opportunity to achieve wellness. But there's more to this conversation, because I've chosen to hold off on the last of the 6 dimensions of wellness, which is spirituality. And I did that deliberately because it can be a very, very large part of your wellness, and it deserves its own space and time. So I'm going to go through that one next week. In the meantime, if you'd like to share your thoughts or feelings about choice and wellness with me, please email me at zodimuro@gmail.com. And I'm always interested in hearing your ideas for topics. So if you'd like to see me cover any topic related to choice, by all means, send me an email about that as well. Folks, I want to thank you for spending this time with me this week. And I encourage you to go to ntmedia.org. Check out all that we have to offer. If you're looking for prayer, for meditation, information, discussion, oh man, we've got it. We even have New Thought music, right? At ntmedia.org/listen. We have over 40 hours of programming each week, and we're adding more each week. Today, just as one example, 12 noon today Pacific time, that would be 1 p.m. Mountain time. I invite you to check out Finding the Joy in the Journey with the superb Reverend Gina Calvario-Kripke. It takes time and talent to do what we do here at the New Thought Media Network, but it also takes treasure. So if you can, I would invite you to go to ntmedia.org, look for that donate button, not the donut button. There isn't a donut button that I'm aware of. The donate button. There we go. Help us bring all this goodness to the largest possible audience, because we want to work to make this a world that works for everyone. I look forward to seeing you again next week. Until we meet again, choose wisely. Much love and many, many blessings.
Choice, your creative superpower. We have the power to manifest as we dedicate attention to our thoughts, but often miss opportunity to achieve the greatest good. Your superpower is waiting to be unleashed to unlock a fuller, more rewarding world for all. Join us every Thursday at noon Mountain Time for Choice, your creative superpower with Zo Muro.